I randomly drove to Missouri on a Tuesday to check out a Skoolie I found on Facebook Marketplace. It didn't end up being the Skoolie for us, but it did get me thinking about a long lost dream, and it got me wondering, is it time for this dream to become reality? And I want to talk to you about this. So here we go. Hello friend and fellow adventurer, my name is Kayla. I'm a multi-passionate creative doing all the things and documenting my messy middle so you don't feel so alone in yours. Welcome or welcome back to Sidequests and Sideeyes, part cozy tavern, part strategy guide, all unhinged chaos. Around these parts we side-eye hustle culture, go the pace of grace, which is really slow, and we celebrate every small win. Showering counts. All right. I know that by now you've probably heard of what a Skoolie is, but in case you don't know what a Skoolie is, it's basically when somebody takes a old school bus and they convert it into an RV. It's called a Skoolie. This is something I saw back in college, and let me tell you, the first time I saw one, I was immediately obsessed and decided, I want to do this. I want to do this. So for the last probably 15 years or so, yes, I'm dating myself, about 15 years or so, I have had this secret board on Pinterest for a Skoolie. It's something I've always wanted to do. I've always thought it would be fun to have a season of my life where I live in a Skoolie and I'm more, nomadic, where I can travel more freely in between friends, family, and national parks. Because really, I just want to see Yellowstone and the Tetons once again and be able to just hang out there for a bit while also working, because how cool is that? Anyways, this has been a dream that I've kind of put on the back burner. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of thought it was never gonna happen because life happened, it wasn't realistic. I didn't know when this was going to fit well within our lifestyle, within our budget, because it takes a lot more time and money than people who set out to do a Skoolie ever really think. And so I've followed Skoolie trends for long enough to know that in my head, whatever time and expense I think it's going to be in creating a Skoolie, converting a school bus into a Skoolie, it's probably higher than what I think it is. I can certainly do it on a budget. However, having done fix and flips with houses before, I am very well aware that at the start of a project, just add like 10 to 20% extra time and money, because that's usually what's going to happen, even if you prepare to the most basic problem that could happen, the most complicated problem that could happen, mind you. Things happen. So how did we end up driving randomly to Missouri on a Tuesday afternoon to check out a Skoolie that I found on Facebook Marketplace if I kind of thought this dream had died? What had happened was we were visiting family in New Mexico. I have a daughter now, she's 5 months old, and Daryl and I started having this conversation of recognizing, hey, before it was just the two of us, and so visiting family, while it was still important to us, it was just the two of us. And so we recognized, like, we'll make a trip once a year to either side of the family. His family's in Michigan, my family's in New Mexico. We are currently in Tulsa. It is literally the halfway point between both families. And so, you know, it made sense. Certainly we would like to see our families more, but, you know, we just didn't have the time. We didn't have the money because, you know, gas prices, we like to drive, but even if we didn't drive, airplane tickets are expensive. And then also for a long time, we had jobs that didn't allow us a lot of time off. And so it was always kind of a gamble of figuring out, okay, well, whose side of the family do we spend, you know, these 2 weeks a year that we get off? Like, how are we going to split those in between the family? Well, a lot has since changed. My husband is now full-time seminary, so he works from home. I have a fully remote job where, while this is home base, it does allow me to be fully flexible. And so now all of a sudden, things are a little bit different, except for the money part. We still don't have money. That's okay. But we have a lot more flexibility in our time, in our schedule. If we want to spend 2 weeks in Michigan or 2 weeks in New Mexico, that's a lot easier to arrange because I can just keep working wherever we go. Same with Daryl. When he's in the semester, he can just work from wherever there is Wi-Fi. On top of that, now that we have a kid, we definitely want her to be able to have a lot of time with family. We want family to be able to see her grow up, to be a part of her life. So there's just some priorities that have been shifting. Driving on the way home from New Mexico, we started having some conversations of what would it look like to potentially move from Tulsa and to be either in Michigan or New Mexico. We just kind of ran through all of the various options and details and tried to put it all together. And this is where I landed, at least, and my husband as well. But I still feel like our time here in Tulsa is not quite done. I feel like there are assignments that God still has for me to finish. So I don't feel like it's time to leave Tulsa fully. But then his family, we have some older folks in his family that we want to make sure that we're able to see and that our daughter is able to spend time with, in these special golden years, right? But then I also have the same thing on my family. I have some aging folks in my family, and I want my family to be able to see my daughter as she's growing up. Not to mention, there is something great about free childcare. Just gonna be honest. And we don't have free childcare in Tulsa. Our lease is coming due in November, and so we have a lot of different things that are kind of sitting up in the air. We also have an opportunity to potentially move into the house next door to my mom, but we don't know how to make all the funds and moving work. So how on earth do we feel called and rooted in 3 different places? How can we be in 3 different places at one time? And all of a sudden, that dream of having a Skoolie started to simmer to the surface. And I looked at Daryl and I said, look, up until this point, doing the Skoolie has always felt kind of like a pipe dream. Like, oh, that's a cute thing you do on Pinterest and, that's awesome. But it's not really a thing that was ever going to happen. And I looked at him, I said, ironically, I feel like this is the perfect time for it. I said that whole idea of the Skoolie life where everything's just a little bit slower, everything just kind of slows down, I think would be perfect. I would love to have these younger years with my daughter where things are slower, more kind of mundane, and we get to see family and friends and see some beautiful things in the United States. I loved having an RV when my mom bought this old RV when we were in our teens, and we traveled everywhere. Those were some of my favorite memories. And now that I have a daughter, I feel more strongly about wanting to create similar memories. So that's how I ended up on Facebook Marketplace. Well, I'm always looking for Skoolies on Facebook Marketplace. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm always looking. So anyways, I started looking and I found one, which was in Springfield, Missouri. It's about a 2.5 drive from where we're at. And I kind of talked to Daryl about it. And in my head, I was thinking, maybe it's a not yet. Maybe it's getting closer, but maybe it's not quite yet. And he surprised me because he's always been the one that's been a little bit on the fence with the Skoolie. Like, he thought it'd be cool, but he kind of thought, like, I don't know if I want to do that. Like, that's a completely different lifestyle, and I don't know how I feel about it. And I agree, it would be a completely different lifestyle. I've never lived that lifestyle. I don't know if I would like it or not, but I'd love to give it a try, right? I'm feeling a little adventurous. He looks at me and says, let's go see it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you actually want to go see it? He said, yeah, why not? I mean, if we're going to potentially do this, let's take it seriously and go see it. We looked at our calendar, and by some miracle, we had nothing on a Tuesday. Now, at work, usually Tuesday is my busiest day, and I happen to have nothing for Tuesday. Tuesday was completely wide open. So I said, we don't have any appointments, no meetings, nobody we're supposed to meet with, no appointments for our daughter, no appointments for you. We never have an open Tuesday. Tuesday's usually, for whatever reason, very crazy. And he's like, let's do it. So we randomly drove to Missouri on Tuesday. We went and saw the Skoolie, and it was a very beautiful Skoolie. It was not exactly my vibe, but I'm okay with getting a complete Skoolie, even if it's not quite my vibe, or like the decorations aren't quite how I would do it, because those are things you can always change. And the idea of the Skoolie already being done was that was tempting, because I would love to do it myself so that I can do what I want to do. But at the same time, having a project that's already done, that's that big, there's something to that. So we looked at it, was great, but as we really thought about it for the next few days, we recognized like it wasn't the Skoolie for us, primarily because they didn't have the right engine or transmission combination. The transmission wasn't quite powerful enough on both sides of the family, both in Michigan or in New Mexico and in Michigan. There are lots of mountainous terrains on the way to get there, and we would be traveling back and forth cross country to see family. So we really need something with a lot of oomph that isn't going to overheat on those high mountain passes. So we ended up finding out that, you know what, it doesn't have the right transmission engine combination. But for the first time, we didn't like throw away the idea. This is like actually still on the table. And I realized how scared I am with the idea that this dream might actually become a reality. And how strange, right? How strange, this dream that I've had for like 15 years. And it could be something that could actually work out. And I realize how much in my life especially more recently, I've spent kind of like waiting for the other shoe to drop. So if something good happens, I'm like, well, that's great. That might just be a one-off. Hopefully it gets better, instead of just kind of celebrating it. And I think this dream feels scary in that way, because it's been such a big like, that'll never happen. And now it feels almost tangible. So I'm working through that. I'm working through that. And I wonder where that is coming from. Probably because we have experienced a lot of just heartbreak and things not going according to plan. But instead of being like even more excited and even more, I don't know, what's the word, motivated, I'm almost like finding more reasons why it can't happen. And I'm thinking, Kayla, you've been waiting for this. It's here. It's actually potentially right here. Why are you afraid to keep moving forward in it? And I think it's because I'm afraid to hope that this might actually be able to come to fruition, and then the whole thing fall apart and be devastated. Yeah, we probably should talk about that in therapy, huh? But that's my story of how I randomly drove to Missouri to look at a Skoolie and discovered this revival of this dream that might actually be able to come to fruition. There are a lot of details that need to be worked out, a lot of moving parts. I don't know when, I don't know how, but it feels good. I feel a lot of peace about this direction. So if that ends up becoming something, materializing into something, I will have more fun content for this channel. I don't want it to become a whole Skoolie renovation channel, because I have other things I want to talk about, but I think that would be a lot of fun to show you that journey as well. So I don't have anything to report quite yet, but I wanted to tell you about that fun little side quest that happened this week, and I hope that that side quest becomes a little bit more of a main quest line, so you can keep me in your thoughts and prayers for that, because it would be great. I don't have a side quest for you to go on today, because that was more of a story time. But if you want to dive into kind of a bigger side quest than these smaller ones that I give on the YouTube videos, then you can check out the Do Less side quest down below. It is a 7-day self-paced challenge that just brings you through your messy middle, whatever you are dealing with right now. If you're feeling like you're ready to quit and life has just got you down, I want you to not try to do more. Let's do less by seeing what you can work with that's already in your hands. It's all about unequipping some things that maybe aren't serving us anymore, and equipping some new things that'll help us walk through that messy middle instead of quitting altogether. So check that out. Also check out my Patreon, where there are more side quests and other activities that you can gather and gain XP on, which can be traded in for some magical prize that I'm still coming up with. But it's just a way to add a little whimsy into your life, should you want that. Now we come to the favorite part of my video, where I like to say, if you haven't heard this before, if you haven't heard this recently, I want you to know that I am proud of you and your life is worth getting back up for. See you next time, friend. Bye.